Well, I promised if the Guardians played better, the intros would return. And in the words of the Joker in The Dark Knight, I'm a man of my word. And if you're still with us after that, hi, welcome to the Selby is Godcast. I'm TJ, that's Zach. I'm just doing that now so Zach doesn't yell at me later. I would say winners of 8 of their last 10 would suggest they're playing better.
Yeah. Also winners of 8 of their last 20, but that's no.
Why are you doing that? Why are you putting that out there into the universe as soon as we start the show?
No, I laugh at. They're winners of 48 of their last 98.
I'm only focused on what's ahead of you. I'm only looking at the next several games. I'm only looking at the schedule, which has seemed to let up a little bit compared to the rest of Major League Baseball. And as you pointed out on the Patreon show, that is something that they have to be mindful of and have been mindful of in the past. So the fact that, yeah, it's the Sacramento, Las Vegas, don't call us Oakland Athletics, and you took a series from them without Stephen Kwan. We'll talk about that. And yeah, you could look at the Baltimore Orioles, who were supposed to be good but are not good, and a few other teams on the mix here right before the trade deadline that perhaps allow you to take a little bit more, just bite off a little bit more of that deficit. Looking at that wild card, could this play a main factor, a big factor in what this team does before the trade deadline?
Do you want to start there? Do you want to start trade deadline and just dive right into it?
Where else would you like to start? You want to talk about Tyler Soderstrom's adventures in left field?
Not particularly.
I felt bad for the guy, actually.
Yeah. I think the American League is fascinating. It's kind of like a car crash where it's actually ugly, but like I can't look away from the standings. And the 3 division winners leaders are all fine. Like the Blue Jays, kudos to them. They've turned it on and they've got a 3-game lead over the Yankees. The Tigers have probably played their worst baseball of the season the last couple of weeks, and yet they have a comfortable 11-game lead in the Central. And the Astros, they haven't played great lately, and the Guardians swept them, but they have a 4-game lead in the West. Okay, those are your division leaders. Then you look at the next tier, and the 3 wildcard teams at the moment are the Yankees and the Mariners and the Red Sox. And the Rays are like right behind those teams. And then there's just this massive glut of, I don't know, that's tier 3. You've got the Guardians at 48 and 50, the Twins at 48 and 51, the Royals at 48 and 52. You've got the Angels at 49 and 50, the Rangers at 50 and 50. And so when you ask about the trade deadline and the strength of schedule, and it's not just what are the Guardians going to do, but it's them trying to figure out what are all those other teams going to do that are in very similar situations as we are. And that's the question. I mean, the Orioles, I think, are out of it. The White Sox are out of it. The Athletics are out of it. That's it. The other 12 teams, you could make a case that you're still alive in the wild card. Do I think the Royals are going to snag a wild card spot? No, but these teams are in the middle, right? So you're trying to figure out, okay, well, the Guardians, the one thing giving you an advantage is the schedule is softer, right? You get the Orioles, the Royals, and the Rockies before the deadline, and this front office wants to see if that matters. The other thing, you will get Shane Bieber back at some point, maybe like the second week of August, and that can really help a rotation that doesn't have Luis Ortiz anymore, right? So, the one thing that, at least me personally, where I'm like, okay, can this team play better in the second half? Like, is there a bright path forward here? And then you get to, all right, first game out of the break. Let's see. It just, for some reason, you just expect like, all right, things are going to be different. Like, it matters now. You're going to turn it on. And then you see the lineup, and it's like Jonathan Rodriguez 6th, Will Wilson 7th. And it's like, we're still doing this? So that's where the
some of the worst lineups I've seen and some of the best run creation of the year.
But that's where the skepticism comes in, where it's like, we've seen the lineup do what this lineup does for 4 months, and why should I magically expect it'll be better? And not just better for 2 of 3 games over a weekend, but better consistently moving forward. That's the only way you can make a run and get a wild card, make some noise here. So if the front office perspective is, we're going to do everything. We're going to explore buying. We're going to explore selling. We're going to send a prospect to this A-ball town on Tuesday to check out this prospect in case this happens. We're going to look to make calls with these teams that we know are sellers and say, hey, Diamondbacks, is this guy available just in case we end up in a position where we want to buy? Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not. You're fielding calls saying, is Kwan available or not? And you're trying to be vague and cryptic just to see what their offer is, even though you probably don't have intentions on trading him. Teams are going to ask about Cade Smith, and you're like, what would you offer? Even though, again, can you really envision a Cade Smith trade in the next 10 days? I personally can't. So you're doing everything with the understanding that you're probably not doing anything until July 30th.
And everybody else is in the same boat. So you're all going to be trying to do the exact same thing with 24 hours to go. It makes for fun to follow it from afar. I'm sure they're a little bit thankful that they're off on the trade deadline day. But as someone that likes to see the chaos unfold, I'm always sad when that happens. I don't want an off day on the trade deadline day. I want to be able to scan dugouts.
Yeah,
I want to have
hug watches.
I want hug watches. I want to see who the Guardians are going to acquire, and the team that still has them are either leaving them in the game in the case of Ubaldo or letting them go fist fight the other team in the case of Yasiel Puig. I love that stuff. Of course, if I was Chris Antonetti, I wouldn't. You know what I'm really curious about, and this has changed even over the last 24, 48 hours, more so that we now know about the prospects and who's going to be out still a little bit longer, and Chase DeLauder is not going to be an option. The fact that, the starting pitching has been so much better. I mean, look at the start that Gavin Williams had, and I don't want to just spend 30 seconds on that. I want to spend some legitimate time talking about that start from Gavin Williams. But look at that. Look at Slade Cecconi and his weird pitching line. But removing what the line looked like, the fact that was a good performance and exactly what they needed coming out of the break. You feel like that is on the right path. That is, I wouldn't say good enough to necessarily go win a playoff series, but I think it's good enough to be among the other teams that are in the wild card picture as far as your starting rotation goes. And the bullpen hasn't been as lights out and dominant and as sure thing as it was in the past, but there's still some very talented guys in there that I believe in over the long term, and I think you'll still find some answers before the season ends. The fact that you don't have reinforcements coming offensively in the nature of prospects, because you don't have a Brito, because you don't have a DeLauder in the near future, I'm wondering what that does to the trade deadline outlook, because maybe they would have been more guarded against the trade to acquire somebody offensively because they're thinking, well, Brito's knocking on the door, and we want to get DeLauder up here. And those are two places we might upgrade this lineup immensely. Then you have, of course, your center field situation. You don't quite know if Angel's going to stick there for a long period of time. You're still trying to get some guys healthy. David Fry looks like he's swinging a better bat. But because you had those reinforcements there, maybe it tempers your desire to go trade for somebody. But because now you're taking both those guys off the map for at least a little bit longer, maybe longer, I'm wondering, does that change and shift because the rotation is good enough to at least hang with some of these other wild card clubs? That is not a fluke. The bullpen is not a fluke. It's just what would happen if you stuck another bat or two into this lineup, and the fact that it's not going to come internally, does that force their hand to maybe explore things that they wouldn't have explored 2 weeks ago?
So I've been very critical of this team, admittedly, and I would like to go on record and say that I think of that tier I placed them in, I think they're better than the Twins. I think they're better than the Royals. I think they're better than the Angels. I don't know about the Rangers. They're kind of a weird team. I think they can hang with the Rays. I don't know if they're at the Yankees, Red Sox, Mariners level. And that's the question to me is how hard, as you're 4.5 games out of the third wild card, how hard do you want to push toward that? This team doesn't make sense to acquire anything short term. Doesn't make sense to acquire a rental. You know, if you can get a rental reliever for nothing, sure. But that's, I don't know that those prices exist this time of year. So to me, comes down to standing pat or selling or buying long term. The issue with buying long term is your competition's going to be more desperate, assuming your competition has a better standing right now, right? So that's why I just think a lot of these debates, the easy answer is just kick the can to the offseason. You know, if someone wants Carlos Santana for some reason, by all means, have at it. And you can just plug in CJ Kafis there, and I don't know that you'd be worse. And it would help you for 2026. I would actually encourage that move. But there's a lot, there's just, yeah, I think that they're going to just see if anybody wants Santana, if anyone believes that Lane Thomas can do something over the last 2 months, Jacob Junis. And then I think they'll entertain offers for the relievers, but I think they'd have to be blown away because they could just say, well, we're not out of it, and let's just hang on here. Because especially with with all those guys, whether it's Clase, Smith, Gaddis, whoever you want to dangle or entertain, those guys are all going to have a ton of team control when you get to this winter too. So they're not in a position where they have to move these people. I just think if you're the Guardians, I've been preaching this for weeks now. I think every decision you make has to have 26 in mind as well as 25. I would put more onus or impetus on 26. I would be trying to make decisions. That's why I thought DeLauder should have been up, is because you need to get that runway for 2026. You don't want these kids getting their feet wet next year. Next year, you're supposed to be back trying to build off of last year like you didn't this year, right? So I just think, I think every decision you make has to have, and they do this anyway. They always say, we're threading the needle, looking long-term and short-term. Well, good, do that now. Because you've, in some ways, pissed away a lot of this season. And I don't know that 10 days, 2 weeks against a soft schedule is going to get it all back, because I'm still seeing the same people in the starting lineup every day. And that's not going to change much.
Well, sure. I think two things can be true. The Guardians are playing better. They are within striking distance of a wild card spot. You shouldn't take that for granted. You should still explore trying to buy and just say, well, because this team stinks, that you should just throw it all away because you don't necessarily believe in them. Well, if you're still in a position, I think you still have to be mindful of this year too. You can't just waste every single opportunity to be good, regardless of what the decisions that put you in this position. Now, can you explore trading everybody on the team? I've said that before. You should. But we know that they're also very committed to whatever their plan is, and they don't deviate off of that at all. I know some opposing front offices get very upset. The Guardians very rarely, if ever, will change their mind on anything or concede anything. They'll stick to their guns.
You're going to see more on The Athletic later this week.
I can't wait.
There's an entire nickname throughout the sport given to
I can't
the way
wait.
Cleveland's front office operates.
But the other thing that could be true is it's a shame that it took winning 8 of 10 to get back to within 2 games of 500 here.
Right.
Just because they're within striking distance does not mean we excuse all the reasons why they're still here where they're at and they didn't seize on where they needed to be. But you are playing better now. So, okay, let's let this play out a little bit more. Let's see what this schedule does to their chances. And if you are playing better and you can go buy, you should absolutely explore doing that.
What do you mean by buy?
Well, I think even you're saying write off all short-term offensive solutions, but I don't know if they would agree with that, because they're going to be thinking, like, if you could go get a
How
everyday
short-term?
outfielder, Oh, I mean, just for the rest of this year. They could go get an everyday outfielder for the next couple of years, but they're going to be thinking, well, we still have DeLauder in the system, and even if he's not here, we don't want to block him long term. If he can't get back this year, we're still thinking about 26 and 27. We don't want to have somebody standing in his way that would be playing the same position as he is. They're going to be thinking about these things. And so I'm wondering, do they think more short term? Like we could upgrade first base now. We could upgrade right field now, or center field now, shortstop now, second base now. Like they could do any of those things in the short term if it doesn't cost them a whole lot, and then almost just reset the chessboard when they come back the next year.
Do you want to win a bidding war for a rental when you're 48 and 50? Are you going to outbid the Dodgers, who might want outfield help? You're going to outbid the Phillies, who desperately want Stephen Kwan? Like, I don't know. I think they're kind of stuck here. Like maybe if you identify someone or like if, the Braves are interesting, right? Like if you want to outbid someone in a buy low sense for like Ozzie Albies or Michael Harris, go for it. Like sign me up for that. But I don't know. I mean, even Luis Robert is still tantalizing in many ways.
Forever.
Right?
Yeah.
But
I guess my point here, though, Zach, is just I wouldn't rule anything out. I think there are benefits to looking at the rentals. I think there are benefits to looking at the long-term solutions. The only thing that I'm thinking about is I think they would see the long-term solution, the guy that's under contract or at least under control for several years, as a potential roadblock. I wouldn't see it that way, but I think they internally would think about it that way.
They shouldn't. Yeah, I mean,
no, they shouldn't.
Hasn't DeLauder proven to you that? I mean, whether it's the front office standing in his way or it's injuries, like it's let him force his way in. And,
I agree.
And I mean, he tried this year, but yeah, and I they've had so many injuries in the farm system. I mean, the Brito one is the one that gets me because he would have been up early this season, and I'm just so interested in his bat. I don't know how it will translate, but I think a guy who has defensive versatility and his main position being a position where you could absolutely use him, and this is ending up as a wasted year. And he's a guy, I mean, maybe they get granted an extra option on him because he's barely played this season, but he otherwise would be out of options next year. So, yeah, I think a lot is on the table. I'm with you there. And I think they're going to just do their homework on every possible scenario so that when it comes down to it, July 29th, it's like, okay, 48 hours, what actually makes sense? What's realistic here?
With DeLauder, I just cannot believe the bad luck this kid has had. It'd be one thing if it's the same thing over and over and you'd say, well, you knew this was going to be a case with him. This lingering issue could be a problem. But when it's now the right wrist that he has to go see a specialist for, and that just adds to the list, like how could somebody's body, and this is what he's just saying to himself, how could my body just betray me? Every part of me. And it's such a shame because there are so many prospects within this system that I have questions about. But for DeLauder, I don't question his actual talent. I think if you got him up here, he'd play and he'd perform.
I think they think that too.
Like, I don't think there's any question about that. But God, the poor kid can't even get on the field and stay there. And it's, again, not the same thing over and over. If it was just a foot problem or if it was a core problem, but it's not one chronic thing. It's every element of him. It'd be absolutely maddening if I were him.
But that's why you have to approach it as like a bonus. Like if he's healthy, first of all, that's why, like, I get it. They set out this plan to build him up, and they wanted him to be able to play 5 times a week, and they wanted to set this up in a controlled environment in the minors, and fine. But you desperately needed a jolt offensively. His bat was ready. It was just he hadn't met your qualifications endurance-wise. But, like, you could have let that play out at the major league level. And that doesn't mean, that's not to say that his wrist would have avoided an injury at the major league level, but you never know. And you needed the bat, and he was otherwise ready as a prospect. So that never made sense and will continue to not make sense. But now it just feels like anything you ever get from the guy is going to be a plus. And again, that's more reason to just get him up to the majors whenever he's healthy and knocks the rust off. But yeah, just disappointing. I mean, really, like, could end up being a lost season for him, a lost season for Brito. Pisana missed a huge chunk of time. Yeah. What's Daniel Espino up to?
God.
How's Adam Miller?
For Pisana, at least, it's early enough still in his acclimation to professional baseball where I feel like there could be some benefit from him missing the time. Maybe he attacks elements of his swing and mentality, gives him a little bit of a blow. I know he had gotten onto a little bit of a better path, but like I don't feel as bad about his lost development time, him being out a little bit, as I do DeLauder, certainly, who, as you said, was ready. And you're absolutely right. I used to say this about pitching, too. With pitching, there's only so many throws in your arm. It's a ticking time bomb. And for DeLauder, like, how many at-bats do you want him to waste at the minor league level, knowing that at any point he might have another issue pop up? It was maddening even as they were doing it at the time, because you're thinking, I don't know how long he's going to stay healthy. And if he's got healthy at-bats within him, I don't really like him taking him at AAA. I want him to take him at the major league level. Fortunately, now that's a moot point.
He's the worst part about this is now we have to sit and wait anxiously to see if he can continue his 34-game on-base streak in Columbus.
That's what it's all about. Well, I mean, the good news is they have seemed to fix some things offensively, because by removing Stephen Kwan from the equation, the offense blew up a couple of games. So there was the issue. Who was mad that this guy wasn't in the lineup coming out of the All-Star break? The offense looked better to me without him a part of it. So perhaps they've discovered some sort of answer to being better. No Stephen Kwan, as we all predicted.
People seemed angry. It's very interesting. Let me start here. So Jose Ramirez skipped the All-Star Game festivities, and he went home to the Dominican, took a private jet, about 3.5 hours, and spent the week relaxing with family. I learned he's got a farm with like 200 cows. He sells beef and milk. This guy is like a businessman, by the way. I think he built some like apartment complex too a couple years ago that he rented out. Like, he's always got random side hustles. I guess since he left $100 million on the table as a potential free agent, maybe he's trying to make up for it. But he relaxed for 4 days. I know the interesting thing. He said that he is getting absolutely crushed by the media in the Dominican Republic for skipping the All-Star game. And their claim is, well, we all voted for you down here, and we wanted to see you play, and you just skipped it. And Jose's like, you don't understand. Like, he's pointing to his arms. He's like, I hurt here. I hurt here. He points to his ankle. I've got pain here. Like, I needed a few days to recuperate. But he just like couldn't believe how he's just being absolutely ripped to shreds down there. So it's a very interesting juxtaposition because, look, we've seen the Stephen Kwan chatter, and I know I ranted about this last week, I think, on our Patreon show. So if anyone didn't hear it, the gist is there's a tendency, and I don't know if this is just Cleveland, but I feel like when players are not even out the door, the guy's got 2.5 years of team control left, but when players are, when they enter that zone where it's like, we have to talk about their future. Are they going to be traded? Is there a possibility of an extension? Do they want to be in Cleveland? I think we have a tendency of slighting that player. We did it with Josh Naylor where we obsessed over his weight and we let that cloud what his production was. And he's having another good year at the plate, right? That's not even to say that trade was a bad trade. They got them Slade Cecconi, which is great. It's more about how they replaced him and, how they operated all offseason. But I think I've heard a lot of chatter lately about Kwan and, he loves the West Coast and he just wants to go to the West Coast. And he's from there. Okay. He's never outwardly said I'm going to go hit free agency and hopefully the Giants have room in their budget for me. Does every kid dream of playing in their hometown? I'm sure. Tanner Bybee, when he was a kid, probably dreamed of pitching for the Dodgers. Shane Bieber, when he was a kid, probably dreamed of pitching for the Angels. Guess where Stephen Kwan lives in the offseason? He doesn't go back home. He lives in Chicago. I don't know why this has all popped up all of a sudden saying Kwan doesn't want to be here. He wants to be in California, and he's already got one foot out the door. And then I think the All-Star game situation just fanned the flames a little bit. So here's what the deal is. Stephen Kwan injured his wrist in late May on a stolen base attempt against the Dodgers. Kind of folded under him, jammed up a little bit. Ramirez did a similar thing, if you remember, the opening series in Kansas City. Sprained his wrist, left the game. I think maybe missed one day. So Kwan, let's the big key here, we can circle back to this. For everybody saying he doesn't want to be here and the All-Star game's more important, he's played through an injured wrist for 2 months, okay? That's the part that no one is paying attention to here. And so the pain has ebbed and flowed, and he thought he was getting to a better place and that he was going to fully recover and wasn't going to need an injection. And then on a certain swing in the Houston series a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, he felt it again. So he aggravated it. Okay. So he's still feeling it. And if you've noticed, his numbers have definitely taken a tumble here, and especially his power. Not that he's a home run guy, but he had a bunch of home runs early in the season and only 1 or 2 in the last couple months. So the All-Star game, he wanted to go. If you want to make the argument that he should have skipped it and should have gone and seen a doctor on Monday and gotten an injection on Monday, I'll hear it. I've never been a Major League All-Star. I understand he went last year. He felt it was important to go for the experience, to be around those types of players. I can imagine that something rubs off on you when you spend time around Aaron Judge and you spend time around other All-Stars and you get to see this talent up close. And you don't know how many times you're going to go. Stephen Kwan is a very average, regular dude who, like you and me, TJ, has pessimistic thoughts and is self-deprecating. And last year, he was telling himself, this is probably the only time you're ever going to be an all-star, so try to soak it in. And he really struggled to do that. So this year, he thought, all right, I should be more comfortable. I've done this before. Let's see if I can soak it in. He said it was really hard to do because he didn't have his teammates. He was there on his own, and he had Stephen Vogt, but he said it was still a whirlwind. Last year, he had Fry, he had Naylor, he had Clase, I'm missing someone.
That's it. Ramirez, Kwan, Naylor, Fry, Clase.
Oh, Ramirez. Yeah, so they had 5 All-Stars. They played cards in the middle of the Texas clubhouse.
Who are we forgetting? Forgetting nobody.
They all hung out together. It was a very different experience. So I this is a long-winded way of saying, I can see both sides of it. I can see fans who are frustrated, but I think we're losing the plot here. He told Stephen Vogt, he talked to Aaron Boone, he said, look, I'm not taking batting practice. I'm not doing any extra drills or anything. During batting practice, I'm going to go stand in the outfield. I'm not going to go field every ball and throw it in. I'm just going to chill, okay? And the agreement was, if you notice, Riley Green got an extra at-bat, the starting left fielder, and that most reserves got 2 at-bats. Kwan was only intended to get 1. And the American League was down 6-0, and it all looked like it was going to work perfectly. He'd go up there for his one at bat. They're losing 6-0. He doesn't need to try anything heroic. And so he would just try to slap a single, and that would be that. He specifically told Stephen Vogt, like, look, if we're down late and like we need power or a home run or something, like I've still got this wrist thing. Like I'm not the guy to call upon. Like I cannot hit a home run right now. He had the doctor appointment scheduled for Wednesday morning. They had an idea he was going to need the injection and would get a couple days for the injection to take. Of course, the American League storms back. Kwan's up there, game on the line, 2 outs in the ninth, heart beating out of his chest. And he hit a 54-mile-an-hour RBI single, right? Like, it's... I understand everyone's argument. I just think we're making way too big of a deal of a guy going to the All-Star game and taking, like, 3 swings. And so, like, did he potentially delay an injection by a day or two? Yeah, maybe. And therefore, they gave him the weekend to recover. But, like, he's played through this for 2 months. You've seen the other side of this now with Ramirez, who skipped it, and he's also getting heat from his country. And I just think, like, everyone's getting... You zoom out. Those are the 2 guys who should have immunity here. Those are the 2 guys, the only 2 bright spots in your lineup all season. And I just don't think it's worth getting mad about, especially since you won 2 of 3. And the 2 games you won, you scored a bunch of runs. And the 1 game you didn't, you had like a few hits and you lost by 6. Like, I don't think Kwan would have altered the outcome in any of those 3 games. And I think the better thing is, I mean, look, he deserved the experience. He earned it. He got the right to go there. And he came home and he got the wrist taken care of, and the hope is he'll be in the lineup tonight, Monday night. So I didn't intend to spend 10 minutes talking about this and laying it all out, but I just think I've seen some vitriol and some complaints, and I really think it's like self-fulfilling prophecy, or just like people want a reason to be mad because they think that this guy isn't going to be a member of their team for very long. And I think anyone saying like he doesn't want to be here and he's not putting the team first, the guy's played through it for 2 months. I mean, I don't know what you want. So, yeah, the end.
Basically, the way I'm thinking about it, if he would have got an injection, let's say on Monday, maybe he plays 1 game in the series. Like maybe he played Sunday, but I feel like he probably still would have been kept out for the weekend. It's just let's keep him out for the entire weekend that we start the week brand new. So it became what it really was already, a whole week off outside of the few swings he took in the All-Star game.
If I had to guess, and I don't know this for sure, and I don't think they know this for sure because it didn't happen. If I had to guess, the alternative timeline would have been Monday, come back to Cleveland and rest and let the wrist get a day to just chill since you just played X number of days in a row. And then Tuesday, go see the doctor and get the injection. Like, I think there would have been a 1-day difference.
Yeah. And I still think in that scenario, he's held out Sunday.
Very well could have been. They're
because
very cautious.
The way that they think about it is complete the series. You're not going to bring him back on the Sunday.
Yeah, against a lefty, then you'd have to hold him out Monday probably. You wouldn't want him to play back-to-back maybe. Like, yeah.
I think at the end of the day, there's probably no difference in what we saw.
It's getting mad to get mad.
We're recording this before Monday's game. This is with the assumption that he would be back. We obviously don't have the lineup for today, so I don't know that for sure. To me, it's all about just how does it look from the outside. That's the thing that we're talking about. And if it were just the isolated incident of Kwan, it probably would have been swept under the rug pretty quickly. But it's just because we've already led to this point where people are already looking for reasons to be prepared for a Kwan trade, preparing themselves for him not signing an extension and not being here past his control. And I think that because we've already been led to that point, that is what is adding to what is this situation. But otherwise, I think if you were to zoom out a little bit and remove emotion from this, if you can, I know it's tough. I mean, go back to our last free episode. It's tough to remove emotion sometimes. I would just ask myself, do I think that Stephen Kwan ultimately just doesn't care about the Guardians? That would would be elevating the All-Star game over wanting to actually win the games that he's playing with the Guardians? I'm asking that to myself. And being honest, I don't see a scenario here where Stephen Kwan doesn't care about trying to win games, doesn't care about wanting to be in the lineup, that actually does prioritize doing anything in the All-Star game over actually playing with Cleveland. I just don't believe that. Maybe you do. And okay, I can't change your mind on that. And you can't change my mind on this. I don't believe that Stephen Kwan just doesn't care or like isn't freaking out internally about wanting to be more productive like he was at the beginning of the season. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. Maybe you do, but I don't.
He told me, because we had a long conversation in the spring about his All-Star game experience last year and how, I mean, again, I can't stress enough how much of he really is like a regular dude just who got placed in the body of an athlete, but it doesn't really look like the body of an athlete, right? I mean, just mentally he is, and I think part of this is intentional, but I mean, he said last year at the All-Star game, he's in the starting lineup hitting in front of Aaron Judge and Bobby Witt, and he's like looking around like, I don't belong here. And I said, okay, well, year 2, you're back there, you've done this before. I assume you're more comfortable in your own skin, and he's like, no, like look at some of the numbers these guys have put up, and I've hit a rough patch lately, and I'm hitting 285 and whatever, and Cal Raleigh's got 38 home runs, and like he still has that imposter syndrome, and so I think he says in some ways it helps. It allows him to not get complacent. It allows him to still be hungry and strive for more, and that's why I think. I guess it's almost like people think he's got this master plan to escape Cleveland and go land some huge contract somewhere else. But first of all, you want to land some huge contract with a California team, like you better perform, right? Like it is in everybody's best interest if he plays and plays really well. Is it not? So whether he's going to get a more lucrative extension with Cleveland or he's going to get a more lucrative free agent deal in 2.5 years, like the number one thing for everybody involved is that he plays well. And so, I mean, the fact that he's gutted through this for 2 months, I think, kind of gets buried here, and I don't think it should.
Let's look at the other guy that had some representation for Cleveland in the All-Star game. You mentioned his name, Stephen Vogt. He was there. So first game back, Stephen Vogt decides that he's going to send Slade Cecconi out for a complete game. The pitching line was already weird. You're eight innings. You've given up 3 runs. But, I mean, if you look, there's a difference between the pitching line and actually watching Cecconi in that game. He looked in complete control, and the offense had seized that first game out of the break. So there was, at that point, no question about the Guardians winning this game. His pitch count was low. And, okay, you send him back out. I think you could make a case there that you pull him out after 8 innings because you want the last, we've talked about this before with Cecconi, you want the last thing that he does to be chest puffed out, feeling uber confident about himself. And yeah, you give up 3 runs, but overall, like 8 innings, 3 runs, fantastic performance. You gave us exactly what we need coming out of the break. Start our second half off strong. Thank you, Slade. And so Vogt sends him back out there. And again, I get it. You can get another day's rest for that bullpen before you're going to be leaning on them in the second half, I would assume. Although if the starting rotation picks it up, maybe not as much as in the past. Watching that unfold from afar, I think all of us had more feel than Stephen Vogt did in that moment. Like, what? The first guy gets on, and not every ball was scalded that inning. Like, there was some weird exit velocity stuff that was leading to extra base hits and probably wasn't all earned. But how do you let that man exit that game with a chance to give up 6 runs? The first guy reaches. I think I'd already have somebody almost loose in the bullpen so that by the time that first guy reaches, we can finagle our way to get him out of the game. But even if you let him face one more batter, how do we let him face another batter beyond that? To me, because you have to then let Clase get warm, because you're now to a point where this could be a save situation. Within one swing of the bat, we could be looking at a tie game or a worse situation. I think that just you in the case of Stephen Vogt, you let a situation that was great, really good, leave you with a bad taste in your mouth as he's leaving the field, and then the pitching line, while hilarious, and our friend Travis Sawchik pointed out, looks like a pitching line of old. 8+ innings, 6 runs allowed. How often do you see that? Not often. I could not believe what I was witnessing. To let something that was good become kind of sour towards the end. What were we doing there? It was blowing my mind as I was watching that happen.
It was a very weird night because he got into the 7th inning and he had no walks and no strikeouts. I was like, what year is it? He's so fascinating to me. So his first 8 starts of the year, he averaged 83 pitches. And so this is where development meets contending and trying to win games. And very interesting case study here because it was your first game out of the break, so the bullpen's fully rested, but you also have 13 games in 13 days. Hunter Gaddis is day-to-day. You're trying not to overwork Cade Smith and Emmanuel Clase to an extent. And so you could see both sides of that part of it, right? With Slade, he threw 105 against the Tigers on July 4th, then 98 when he went 7 innings in Houston. Stephen Vogt said that they were prepared to let him go up to 115, which I'm like, does anybody do that? Like, that's a thing? I thought you only do that in college. College, you throw like 157 pitches and then you throw 2 innings of relief 2 days later. Why
are all these pitching injuries happening? I don't know.
I was confused too. I understand it in a vacuum, like it does feel like the perfect chance to push him because you've got a comfortable lead. You really like just Slade against this lineup. I mean, he dominated them a month ago as well. So it felt like a good opportunity to just trying to push his pitch count even higher. But you're right. It's like once you got traffic and the lead starts to dwindle and he's over 100 pitches, it's like, what are you doing? And like each batter that comes up, you're like a little bit more just taking it back. And then they go to Clase only when it becomes a save situation. And it's like, you were waiting all the way for that? Yeah, it's weird. Slade's a smart enough guy to know like I don't think he's going to go from being on top of the world to being ticked off about his start just because of that. But it is a weird...
I will for him. I will do it for you, Slade.
It looks, and it's hindsight, but it's like if you just pull him after 8, everybody is saying, oh my God, what a great start. This is perfect.
That's what I'm saying.
I know. And then you could have gone
That's what I'm saying.
Festa or Junis for the 9th, and you wouldn't have lost any sleep.
I even get, if you pull him out after 8, I get it. I don't even think about it. Like, perfect, great. If you send him back out for the 9th, which you did, I was like, that's interesting. But I also, to your point, get what's happening here. You can never get a guy comfortable in the 90 pitches if you don't push him to 105. You want to get it to a point where getting past 100 is okay so that by the time he gets to 85, like that's not the end of the line. You still have another 15 to 20 pitches before you're thinking, got to get this guy out of the game unless the situation just dictates it based on performance. So
and he was at 90 going into the 9th.
So I get it, right? Send him back out for the 9th inning. But by the second batter, you have to know, out of here. Got to get him out of here. And you're sending him back out here for foreign territory, not only in pitch count, but also now 8 up and downs, or however you would phrase that, because it would be the first time out. I don't know. So you're sending him out there for another inning to be the complete game, which is now him having to ramp himself up again after another rest in the dugout. So this is also foreign territory in the major leagues for him. You have to be mindful of this and have somebody ready to go. You have to have Junis, have Festa, have somebody like you're calling down there and saying, listen, we want Slade to finish the game, but be ready, because if there's traffic, we're going to get him out of here very quickly. And just to let that happen was crazy. It reminded me of, was it the Matt Harvey start in the playoffs, or it just, or maybe a Pedro start was it the Pedro start where they just let him he just kept going and going, and people are going, what are you doing? Get him out of the game. That was the Grady Little
thinking, like,
decision.
What if this guy gets a loss?
I don't know how you let a situation like that happen. Like, how do you let 6 runs appear on the line score here? And yes, we're looking beyond line score, even beyond that. The fact that he hadn't struck anybody out. You probably wouldn't put this as his best career start, even though he's pitching now into the 9th inning, because he didn't miss any bats. And so you'd factor that in. We're not looking just at his ERA anymore to be the only method of evaluation. But to let that happen, I could not believe what I was watching.
Yeah, it's strange when he pitches into the 9th and everyone, like, he's still the story that night, right? Like, everybody is in the press boxes, like he's the guy you're writing about post game. You're asking questions that are like, how great was Cecconi tonight? And yet his ERA went up from 344 to 384 in that start. So you have to, I mean, that's why, like, the line score doesn't tell everything. The one thing I will say, so it's really odd. Do we agree? Like, he's got good stuff, right? Like, there's a good arsenal in there. I think they're still figuring out what the right pitch mix is. Like, if you look at it, he threw his four-seamer 55% of the time last year, and it's down to about 40% this year. And his four-seamer's getting hit pretty hard. But his slider and curveball check out really well. So it's like, what is the right percentages here to keep people off the breaking stuff, to make this fastball more effective? Like, that's going to be a work in progress. You're not going to unlock that overnight. And that's why, like I've written, I think I did a mailbag recently where someone asked, actually it was me asking, if just what have I thought of Cecconi so far? And I said, like, your metrics are terrifying, but I'm not going to look at your metrics until the surface level stuff and what I'm seeing on the field is very worrisome. And I'm certainly not there yet. And so even though he's not, he's going through that start Friday night and he's not striking anybody out, I'm like, that's okay. Like, I don't need to, until they start crushing you and you're giving up a ton of hits or your command goes awry and you start walking guys, like, I'm not going to worry about the underlying metrics. And I will say the underlying metrics, it's still worrisome. They're creeping up in certain categories in the right direction. So, it'll be really interesting to see what this looks like at the end of the year. And, like, then also that gives a chance for everybody to breathe, Slade included, who had the injury and has to rehab back to start the year, and also is trying to figure out, like, what does this look like with some changes to my mechanics and all these new people telling me information. And I don't see how you can't be really excited about him moving forward next year and beyond, just knowing the huge step he has taken this year, and I think the opportunity to build on it.
Yeah, I'm not talking myself into him being a 3.8 ERA guy yet, because I don't believe in that yet, long term, projecting it forward. But the question here is,
but it should have been 3.4 if he wasn't left in for the 9th.
Okay. The question here is he good enough that he just earns the next start and the next start and the next start? Yeah, he's been that so far. And you don't trick yourself into thinking that he's the finished product, which the Guardians clearly are not doing today. I wouldn't say, don't change a thing, Slade. Everything's working great. I wouldn't tell him that. I would continue to try to find more swing and miss and more chase and more taking guys off the barrel. And as you're saying, the right pitch mix. And how do we use that fastball as more of the surprise inside corner 94 to 96 that the guy thought was going to be a breaking ball, and you steal a strike 3 on the corner there? How do we utilize that? How do we, as you said, take guys off the breaking ball so that they remain effective and you don't throw them too much? He's not a finished product, but you're getting the results now that just justifies this to continue at the major league level. And because I have faith in their ability to get more out of guys as the more that they work with them, and the more experience that they get, the more they learn about themselves, the more they alter in the offseason, whether it's a pitch, a grip, a change, a repertoire change. adding something, subtracting something. There's enough of a building block here so far that I'm excited about what the future holds for him. And you could take a guy like Cecconi doing that at the back end of the rotation, then look at what Gavin Williams is doing at the front. And yeah, there have been times this year where he even talked about it. His first half has been pretty almost maddening for him because he feels like he should be better than he's been. And that would be, I think we'd all be in agreement on that. Looking at the walks and the elevated pitch counts and the inability to get deep into games consistently, that for a guy with his sort of stuff doesn't feel like it aligns. And then you have a start like Sunday with him, where you get the 11 strikeouts, all the swing and miss. I love that he leads the charge with the curveball being the most used pitch for him. The cutter way down. The cutter was, as we said, was his flex tape for a while, trying to take guys off the four-seamer, which was still his least utilized pitch was his four-seamer in that start, with only 14 of them thrown, curveball leading the way with 23. I'm encouraged because he was attacking the strike zone. He was still getting the swing and miss on top of not walking the guys. So we see this sometimes. We saw it all the time with Danny Salazar, where he'd walk 5 and also strike out 10. And it's like, to get the strikeouts, he has to be almost as wild as he was. Gavin Williams, you could have a start where you're still attacking the strike zone and guys are missing you. And this is a lineup, yes, Sacramento, Las Vegas, Oakland, yes, the record is what it is, but there's some really good hitters within that lineup. And if you can make them look foolish, I'm really encouraged. This is all a positive step forward. And we talked about it with Tanner Bybee, how important the second half is for him to really establish himself as the ace. Gavin Williams is another one that even if this team doesn't make the playoffs and have any noise in the postseason, it's his second half that can leave you feeling really excited about what is in store for 2026, knowing the top of your rotation is set with those two guys, on top of whatever's happening with guys coming back off of injury and Slade Cecconi and Logan Allen and whoever else is in the mix. Gavin Williams is a huge part of leaving you with some positive vibes.
Yeah, that was his longest outing of the year, and he needed 96 pitches. I vividly remember earlier in the season in Toronto, him needing 100 pitches to go through 4 innings. So it's command, it's conviction in the ever-changing arsenal that he's got, and I just think he's been searching. I mean, I give the guy a lot of credit because we know he throws hard, and we know that even when he came up, remember, he had the metrics on the slider and curveball his rookie year looked great, right? And he had a really sparkling ERA, a pretty healthy strikeout rate, and we all said there's more in there. Can you hold your fastball velocity deeper into a game? Can you find an even better pitch usage combination to boost that strikeout rate even more and just be more effective? And then last year was kind of a wasted year for him because of the injury, and he came back and it was inconsistent. And I think this year is about how you always hear about you get into the league and then hitters make adjustments and you have to adjust back, and he's adjusting back. And I think the command is a thing. Like, it was great to see him only walk 1 on Sunday after walking 5 White Sox a week ago, right? So that's a thing. And that's going to be the difference in whether he's an ace or whether he's a guy that frustrates you because you see flashes of an ace, but it's not consistent, right? But the key for him is what is the right mix of pitches that is going to keep hitters off balance and guessing and looking foolish. And that's why you've seen the implementation of the cutter and trying to pair the cutter with the sweeper and trying to figure out, okay, what makes sense? Do I want a sinker? Do I want a changeup? He's joking about a knuckleball. And what is the right combination here? And this has been a work in progress, and it's been a work in progress on the fly. And that's why I give the guy credit, because he's not the finished product. And that's okay. And he's still showing you that the ceiling here is sky high, and he has the pedigree, right? He was the first round pick. He was the top 50 prospect. He was the dude who never struggled in the minor leagues. And you were just wondering, can you just throw enough strikes and you can be a frontline starter? And I think people's faith in him and insistence that this guy, he's got the ingredients. We're seeing it now. And so can you just keep at it? Can you be more consistent? He definitely has been over the last month and a half. But there are still steps to take. Like there's, that White Sox start in his previous start was the exact reason why we're not anointing him the ace of the rotation yet, right? So we'll see where this goes. But you're right. I mean, even with the Ortiz situation, which, I mean, imagine if that didn't exist, what we'd be saying about the near future of this rotation. But, you can talk yourself into Williams and Bybee and Cecconi being a nice nucleus moving forward.
It's always nice when the things you see with your eyes are then backed up by the production. I think it's frustrating when you see Gavin Williams reach back and hit 98, 99 with a fastball and not get the results, not get tons of swing and miss, not attack the strike zone because you think, yeah, okay, maybe guys are at this level are good enough to be able to get that, but not to the level that you should be walking 4 or 5 guys every single outing. You can't be afraid to attack the strike zone. So it's a nice, it just settles me down when I finally see the production match what my eyes are seeing. Let's go to the other side of the ball with Angel Martinez, who has been great in his last 13 games. Here's the slash line the last 13 games: 308, 315, 673, 4 home runs in the last 13 games played over 54 plate appearances. I love that the 308, 315 dynamic, but then also shifting one over to 673 for a 988 OPS over the last 13 games. They've needed it because that center field position with Lane Thomas out and then Stephen Kwan missing some time has been a blessing for a guy named Angel. What is really confusing, don't roll your eyes, it was a good one. What's really confusing for me is I see him the same way I saw him last year, where he came up and really saved them at points. But looking at the numbers, there was nothing there that was worthy of hanging a hat on. There was nothing in the StatCast data that was like, ooh, yeah, this is a dude. Now, flash forward to this year, again, he's in the 3rd percentile in expected weighted on base average. He's in the 15th percentile in expected batting average so far this year at 232. His expected slugging is 345. Like, all of the stats would suggest this guy is as brutal of a hitter as you will ever see. And I'm not to say that he's great, because the numbers are still below average this year, but he's meant more than a guy that if I looked at his StatCast page and read you those statistics and then weighed that against what I think he's actually meant to the club, they don't match at all. And then look on the defensive side. You realize he's at -7 defensive runs saved in center field this year? That does not match what I'm seeing. And even in outs above average, it would suggest I think he's a -2 outs above average in center field. This is a guy that I feel like has helped them and has held things together and has a role on this team long term. But if I'm just an unbiased observer that's not watching all these games and looked at Angel Martinez, I would say, I don't think this is a guy that you would be very excited to have in your organization. He's not really doing much here. But like watching it up close, this guy's sort of important. And not a guy I'm building around, but I think you can build a career over what he's been doing. Just the ability to bounce around and kind of do a little bit of everything. And I think we're seeing strides made offensively. And the power surprises you for a guy that I just read you what all his StatCast data would suggest. That does not look like a guy that should be nearing double digits in home runs this year.
It's very strange, and I've been grappling with this lately too, because I'm not sure what to make of him. And we can say like, oh, there's a spot for it. It's like Schneemann falls into this too, where it's like, yeah, like there have been some bright spots this year, and like he could be a guy you keep around, but you can't have an entire roster full of like guys who get an occasional start, who you don't mind on the roster, but they probably shouldn't be playing every day, and you're not sure where they fit. It feels like that's like 10 of their 13 position players. He's been great against lefties. You appreciate the defensive versatility, the fact that he can shift from any outfield spot to go play second base. That helps. I'm with you. I don't know what he is, because the lack of plate discipline is always going to hurt him. You know, it's kind of like Gabriel Arias in a way in past years, where it's like like I want to see more, but I fear for what that might look like over an extended period. The metrics are scary. I mean, chase rate is at the absolute bottom of the barrel. The walk rate is at the absolute bottom of the barrel. He doesn't really hit the ball hard, and so I don't know. The 9 home runs is interesting. They always thought that this dude was athletic and had 15 to 20 home run power. It was just going to be, how does he access it? Because he's a free swinger. And so I'm with you in that, like, I think there's a role as like a super utility dude who can play a lot of spots and be a spark plug at times. But there's a lot of times where, like, if he's not a spark plug, he's maybe hurting you because he doesn't have that high floor, because he doesn't draw walks. He's on base percentage. Like, I'm watching him hit leadoff over the weekend, and like, I don't know that I had a better idea for them without Kwan, but
sure,
his on base percentage, I think going into Friday night's game, was .257.
Yeah, well, I just read you what the stats are in this hot stretch, and the on base percentage is below 320, and that's the hot stretch. I feel like we've said this before about him. He's not a guy that I'm holding the door open at any one spot and saying, you've got Angel here, so that's fixed. Now let's move on to the next thing. But, like, why can't he have a similar career to what Willie Castro has been doing? Minnesota, Detroit.
Shout out, hold on. Sorry. Patrick Ellington, friend of the show, I think. You can find his work on his social media, tangible_uno, I think. I'm doing this off the top of my head. I wasn't prepared. But I just wanted to interrupt you, to say that big Guardians fan, ball knower extraordinaire, made that exact comparison to me like 2 weeks ago. Because he's been a believer in the same, we were having the same exact conversation. Like, we think this is a major leaguer, and like, he's got to be good. He's got to have strengths, right? But we have no idea what to make of him. And he said the exact same thing. Like, can he be like Willie Castro? And I was like, that's a really good comparison. And then you just said the same exact thing.
Great minds think alike. Although in this case, you don't want to be compared to me. So that's an unfortunate thing. But I mean, look at his career. He, at the age of 23, in 2020, that shortened season, had a great offensive year, and then at the age of 24 and 25 seasons, 21 and 22, he was a below-average hitter. Wasn't a finished product, but since then is a 107, 107, and now 125 this year with Minnesota. And this is a guy that doesn't have any one spot for any length of time, but just an ability to bounce around and play a lot of different spots. It's a valuable player to have. And I think because of that versatility, sometimes WAR doesn't capture everything that a player brings to the table if he's someone that can sit on your bench and basically play the role of 3 different people. And the fact that he's also a switch hitter. Now, I know he's had so much more luck and the swings have looked better from the right side so far this year, but this is still a work in progress for him. And that it's the power that is intriguing because, again, the StatCast data would suggest this guy, you could knock the bat out of his hands. How does he have 9 home runs? Looking at him, that frame producing the 9 home run
a little bit.
I know, and that would be suggested too. I think I saw it. His expected home runs 7, his actual home runs are 9. So maybe you can just find him right there. But still, it'd be surprising if he had 7 to me based on what the StatCast page looks like. But this is a case where I'm going to have to go against what all the data is screaming at me and tell me he's a terrible defender, that he's a really bad hitter. I think this guy is one that good teams have, players like this on their roster, and it helps them win, even if it's not always reflected in every piece of data. I'm going to go against what the computers say. You're wrong here. I think this guy is valuable.
Imagine if I would have told you at the start of the season that Angel Martinez would be averaging 1 home run every 30 at-bats, and Nolan Jones and Jhonkensy Noel combined would be averaging about 1 every 70.
What is this? Can't predict ball.
No.
I don't even know why we try. What I do know is we came in here, screamed, yelled, held them accountable, and then they went on their hottest stretch of the year. So
You're welcome.
We get things done. Antonetti tried it. They sucked right after that. We got on here, yelled, and screamed. They're right back into the wild card picture.
Maybe we need to scream some more.
What do you want to scream about?
Let's just do some like death metal screaming. Didn't you used to do that all the time?
Used to? What do you think I'm going to do after this?